The topic today is amazing ladies. Amazing ladies. And what I'm going to be sharing from will be the book of Proverbs. We're going to end up in our main text will be in Proverbs 31. But the whole book of Proverbs can really help a human reset their moral compass. And we're going to see forgiveness. We're going to see love. We're going to see incredible things in here. Also, this whole section is taught so that we can learn to walk by the Spirit. Utilize that portion of what a true human is in order to really function and do well in this life. And so I ask you, what person in your life has the most condensed and ingrained impact on you? Probably your mom or your wife, your aunt, a teacher, an older sister maybe. Today, I pay tribute to all you moms and to all you women and to all you guys who had a mother or some woman in your life who helped mold you into that excellent person that you've become. Today is about you amazing ladies. Here's a quote. A sweater is a garment worn by a child when its mother is feeling chilly. And that's by Ambrose Bierce. And Josephine used to tell me that, she did for our kids. It'd be 90 degrees outside. Take a jacket, it might get chilly. Or her aunt used to tell her, I'm cold, you need to put a jacket on. And a mother's a cool thing. Mother was the bank where we deposited all our hurts and worries. T. DeWitt Talmage. And here's a quote. When you are a mother, you're never really alone in your thoughts. A mother always has to think twice, once for herself and once for her child. Sophia Loren. Yeah, that's pretty good. Nice one. So you can go to Proverbs 1. And Proverbs is written by one of the wisest men who ever lived. And he was a man named Solomon. And he was the child of King David and his wife Bathsheba. And both had an impact on his life and his ability to lead. But I want you to remember that the words may have come from his father and his mother that we're going to hear, but their real origin was God. And let's take a look at this treasury of wisdom, this pool of perfection that Solomon and all of us have been able to draw from and really would like to dive into. And so to understand Proverbs 31, which is going to be our text for the day, we need to begin with chapter 1, a few verses. So Proverbs chapter 1, we're going to read 1 through 8. I'm going to read it from The Voice. I, Solomon, David's son and Israel's king, pass on to you these proverbs, a treasury of wisdom, so that you could recognize wisdom and value discipline, so that you would understand insightful teaching and receive wise guidance to have a disciplined life, that you would seek justice and have the ability to choose what is right and fair. It's a lot of stuff right there. So this is what his parents wanted for him. This is what God wants for us. These proverbs teach the naive how to become clever. Naive in the ways of the world or naive in the ways of our great enemy, the devil. And these proverbs teach the naive how to become clever. They instruct the young how to grow in knowledge and live with discretion. Now you notice it isn't just for young people. And a lot of Christians avoid Proverbs because they think it's just to train young people. It's for anybody who doesn't want to be stupid. And so the wise will pay attention to these words and will grow in learning. And the discerning will receive divine guidance. Think of those 9 exhibits of Holy Spirit. Think spiritual power. Think God being able to communicate with you. That's what it's talking about. So these things are going to be in Proverbs. And they're in verse 6, and they will be able to interpret the meaning of a proverb and a puzzle, the twists and turns in the words of the wise and their riddles. Going to be able to understand what's really going on in the world. You don't have to have some talking head tell you what you're supposed to believe, because it changes all the time. Let us begin. The worship of the Eternal One, the one true God, is the first step toward knowledge. Fools, however, do not fear or respect God and cannot stand wisdom or guidance. I mean, that's pretty stubborn when you just refuse truth. I don't want it. I don't want to be good. Verse 8, so, my son, pay attention to your father's guidance and do not ignore what your mother taught you. And so that's what I want to read from chapter 1. So you can flip over to chapter 31 and it'll make a lot more sense. And this book will help any of us to learn so that we can hear and detect God's still small voice, so that we can do what we're sent here to do. We can be who we're designed to be and find the treasures that we were designed to find. So we're each put here to have magnificent success. And so much of that comes from the training of our mom and dad, whatever truth was handed down, or somebody. So now Proverbs 31, the amazing words of an amazing lady, a magnificent mom. And Bathsheba was speaking for God to her son. And this all started when he was just old enough to understand. When he was a little child, that's when she started teaching him these 31 verses that we're going to hit. So Proverbs 31, again from the voice, these are the words of King Lemuel. That's just another name for Solomon. Had a bunch of names. And an oracle of wisdom handed down to him from his mother. So we know this happened over a period of time. This wasn't, go read chapter 31, Solomon. I'm going to watch my shows. It wasn't like that. So here we are. His mother was Bathsheba, the woman that King David wanted so much that he had her husband sent into a harsh battle, had the troops pull back, knowing that he would get killed. So David put the hit out on Uriah, which was Bathsheba's husband. And this woman was incredibly beautiful. And we're going to see that she became incredibly spiritually sharp as well. And she wanted to train her child to be the same. So this oracle of wisdom, it just means it's godly inspired words that she repeatedly planted in the fertile soil of his little head. And these words were not only spoken once, it's a lifetime of training for any child. And it never ends. Never ends. Quote, all I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. Abraham Lincoln. It's a pretty good quote for a president. And I want you to also realize that Bathsheba was a great example of a woman who blew it big time. I mean, she blew it big time. And but she was able to bring her mind and life back around to the truth. And that's not easy to do. For God to give her such incredible revelation after that torrid affair and the murder of her husband, basically, it shows that God has amazing grace and magnificent mercy. God forgave her, but she, in turn, forgave herself. And she was able to move on and even excel. And that's a good lesson in forgiveness for us too, isn't it? I mean, because sometimes we do things. I mean, you look back at our life and you think, what did I do? Well, you can always get back up. You fall down, you get back up, right? And so here's what Bathsheba taught young Solomon over and over and over again. Verse 2. What shall I say to you, my son? What wisdom can I impart, child of my womb? What insights can I share, son of my vows? What's the best thing I can teach you? What words can steer you around the traps of this world? And you'll be surprised with the first 2 traps. But every young man stumbles over them and falls into them. We'll see. And she vowed to God to raise him to be sharp, loving, and to teach him to walk with power. This was the mother who did this, Bathsheba. Verse 3. Do not waste your strength on women, or invest yourself in women who would destroy even kings. See, she knew this firsthand. She had an affair with a king. Killed her husband. And, wasn't it Eve who, like a female Russian spy, turned Adam? Yeah. Didn't she get him to trade love for lust? And didn't she get him to trade what was right for what is right now? She told this to Solomon his whole life. And if you learn about Solomon, or when you learn about him, you realize he did great. He did superb for so long. But these 2 things are the things that he failed at later. And he basically lost everything. So it's important. Your mate is super important. And so verse 4, take care, my son, O Lemuel, Solomon. Kings should not drink too much wine, or rulers should not crave strong drink. Now, she was training him to be a king. Just like Mary and Joseph had to train Jesus to be the Christ, or he wouldn't have been. He couldn't have just learned it by osmosis. Somebody said he learned by obedience, didn't it? Jesus, we do too. I see some of your children, and they're beautiful people. They're excellent people. And it's because of you, especially you moms. So don't drink too much wine. Don't crave that strong drink. For if they do, they will become drunk and forget the decree they just made and alter the course of justice for all the poor and afflicted. You're going to hurt the people who can't help themselves. I know some of you, when you're at a party or something, if you're going to be driving, what do? You don't drink. It's just, especially nowadays, right? Because you got to have somebody that's sane and sober enough to get you home. And but it's the same thing. She's just teaching them basic things here. But these are a couple of things that throw a lot of young guys off. And so let me see. Verse 6. Rather give liquor to the one who's dying, and offer wine to those struggling with life's harsh realities. Let such a one drink and forget what he's missing. Then perhaps he won't remember his sorrows anymore. There's a place for it. It's just not for you if you're going to be a leader. If you're going to get something done in this life, it's not for you. I'm not saying not to drink. That's not what it says here. We're going to see, did you notice how it shifted from becoming emotionally attached to wild women to becoming emotionally attached to alcohol? And it doesn't say not to drink. It just says if you want to stay on top, then don't lose yourself and your moral compass with drink or the ladies. You know. Oh man. So God had to throw that in there, didn't he? So here we go. So I was reading an article about a 104-year-old man. And when the interviewer asked him what kept him alive and happy all these years, he chuckled and said, "Cigarettes, whiskey, and wild, wild women." I'm sure he got a laugh every time somebody asked him that, and he said that. I don't know about that, but it's funny. Verse 8. Verse 8. Speak out on behalf of those who have no voice. And defend all those who've been passed over. Who's going to do it? You know, people who just, they're not heard, they're not listened, they're the little people. And people have been passed over. They just never quite make it. They never quite. There's got to be somebody that stands up for them. Well, it's our job, especially a king's job. And if you read about this, when you've heard of Queen Sheba, she came out to see him because even his servants were dressed better than most royals. Even the poor people prospered more than most regular people in other countries. That's how smart Solomon became because of his training and because he learned to walk with the Spirit of God. Speak out on behalf of those who have no voice and defend all those who've been passed over. Open your mouth. Judge fairly and stand up for the rights of the afflicted and the poor. It's just she's driving this stuff home. It's not about you. Your life is bigger than you. Give, give, give. Take care of people who really can't take care of themselves in whatever way you can. And I mean, don't take this wrong. I'm not talking about, just giving. I'm not talking about welfare and all these things, but it's if you don't speak up, there's a lot of people who can't. I went to court with a young lady one time. Her parents wouldn't go. And I walk in, and the judge said, "Is this your attorney?" And she said, "No, sir." And who is he? And then she told him. And he said, "Lady, don't, we're not going to have. You're not going to go on trial today." Would have been a trial case. And he said, "You need to go get yourself an attorney." He said, "Justice isn't free in this court." Otherwise she would have got chewed to pieces, in court by a defense attorney if she tried to just, she was a teenager, to speak for herself. And I sure wasn't smart enough. All right. So, see, now the tone shifts from the two major pitfalls of young males to our real purpose on life. And it's to use your gift to help others. And every one of us, it's something different. Just because you can't do what somebody else doesn't mean you're less of a person. Use your gift. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify the Father which is in heaven. Jesus said that. Let your light shine. Don't try to be somebody else. It doesn't work. It's hard enough to be ourselves. We speak up and we stand up for others, which also is not easy to do. I read an article about a kid in high school. He was a star football player. And he was hanging around all his buddies, and then the alarm went off in the school, like a fire alarm, and everybody started running and all this, and this little girl with Down syndrome walked up to him and grabbed his hand. And he just held it and then just walked with her in front of all his friends out of the school. And she went to him because she felt safe with that guy. But that takes a lot of guts for a young man to do that, especially somebody who's handicapped. So We stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. And so now we're going to go into that virtuous woman section. And this describes the perfect woman. If you were a perfect woman, this is how you would live. But you're going to be surprised how many of these attributes you have. I mean, and I know many of you, and I see these things, and I marvel, how close to perfection that some of you ladies are. You are amazing ladies. And this is why us men place you ladies on such a pedestal. And partially it's because God asks us to, which we'll hear that at the end. You're awesome, you're beautiful, and you ladies are amazing. Here's what George Washington said about his mom. Quote, "My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute all my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her." End of quote. That's pretty good quote for another president there. And some people didn't have a good upbringing. They did not have a good mom. There's also a lesson in there. What not to do. What not to do. And then you decide, I'm never going to raise my child like that. I'm never going to allow that to get carried on to the next generation. So there's always a lesson. This portion of chapter 31 is called an acrostic. Acrostic. And in Hebrew, each of the 22 next verses begins with a letter of the Hebrew alphabet, a different letter. And it doesn't translate into English. They had fewer words in their alphabet, letters in their alphabet than we do. And so this alphabetic ordering makes it easier to remember and helps it to stay categorized in a young man's mind. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I don't really know Hebrew. I just stumble through and you'd be bored. But I just want you to know that this is how it's laid out, and this is how she taught him to remember it. It's like A, this, B, this, C, this, D, just like you might have a whole list. Well, he would have had this fully memorized by the time he was an adult, in order. So we're going to go through that now. And Solomon would have, like I said, he would have memorized this. And this is God's view of a perfect woman, of a top shelf lady. Couldn't get any better than this. And this is the bar. This bar is set very high, we're going to find out. But you'll be, like I said, I'm surprised how close a lot of you are to this. And it's beautiful. Verse 10, who can find a truly excellent woman? A virtuous woman. One who is superior in all that she is and all that she does. Her worth far exceeds that of rubies and expensive jewelry. Where can I find my ideal woman? Where can you find an ideal woman, a model girl, a perfect mate? She was just describing a perfect mate for Solomon. This is what she wanted him to have, just like you wanted your son or daughter to have. And if I could find her, she would be worth all the wealth of the world. You ladies are worth all the wealth of the world. There's nothing more precious than you. God gave it up all for you. Verse 11, she inspires trust, and her husband's heart is safe with her. And because of her, he has every good thing. Because of her, he has every good thing. Like the Bible says, it says, given it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men heap into your bosoms. In other words, it's people who are going to give it to you. God's the ultimate giver, but it's always going to come through a human somehow. And so that's what he's saying here. It says, because of her, he has every good thing. Look what that woman's thinking far beyond herself. And that's why you get so tired sometimes. And usually if you care the most, don't you get hurt the most? Yeah. And who are the people who hurt you the most? People closest to you. It's a horrible paradox, but you ladies are designed, to handle so much. We appreciate that. She inspires trust. You're inspirational to us. My heart's, you're my safe person. You're a safe person. My heart is safe with you. You're an inspiration. And that excellent lady is going to make sure her man has everything she can possibly supply. Everything. If you know what I'm talking about. Woman's good, woman good. So a successful man, here's a quote. A successful man is one who makes more money than his wife can spend. A successful woman is one who can find such a man. Lana Turner. Here's another quote. By all means, marry. If you get a good wife, you'll become happy. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. Socrates. Oops. Verse 12. Every day of her life, she does what is best for him. Never anything harmful or hurtful. Wouldn't that man just be inclined to love her back amazingly? It just what a beautiful idea. Every day of her life, she does what's best for him. Never anything harmful or hurtful. And what usually can hurt the easiest and the quickest? Words. So somebody really controlling their tongue. Quote, a good wife is one who serves her husband in the morning like a mother does, loves him in the day like a sister does, and pleases him like a prostitute in the night. End of quote. Hello. And that's from Chanakya, an Indian philosopher born 350 BC. Yeah. So I guess life hasn't changed all that much in 2,300 years. This is all in this, within these 31 verses here of this final chapter. There's a lot in there. Verse 13, delight attends her work and guides her fingers as she selects the finest wool and flax for spinning. She moves through the market like merchant ships that dock here and there in the distant ports, finally arriving home with food she's carried from afar. And you see them just working their way through the mall, through the grocery store, through the strip malls. Boy, they know exactly where the right things are to bring home. And what this is saying here with Bathsheba, God by way of Bathsheba is telling her son is, you want an excellent shopper. You want a master of the markets. Or like that saying says, when the going gets tough, the tough the tough go shopping. So, it's sort of like shopping therapy, right? Retail therapy. Now, maybe you don't like to shop for some things, but let's say you don't like to shop for clothes, but you might like to go to a plant and garden store. You might like to, there's something you're going to like to do, you see, and you're going to be great at it. You're going to be the best at it. In those days, people, they made a lot of clothes, you see, but we don't. So you make it to the store. You get the best deals on the best things. So Let me see. I like it how she moves through the market like a merchant ship that docks here and there in the distant ports. She's just flowing through the store. She knows exactly where to go. If my wife gave me a list to go grocery shopping, it would take me 14 years because I don't know where anything is. And I'd be going up and down aisles, and she would have it. She'd know exactly where they are on the aisles, right? And where they are on the, she knows where everything is. I don't want to. Did I just say that? And so here's a quote. Whoever said that money can't buy happiness simply didn't know where to go shopping. Bo Derek. Here's another one. I always say shopping is cheaper than a psychiatrist. Tammy Faye Baker. Verse 15. She rises from bed early in the still of the night, carefully preparing food for her family and providing a portion to her servants. See, her life is bigger than herself, this woman. This ideal woman. She thinks outside the box. She thinks outside of herself. And I think so many of you are such a great example of this. You work so hard. Outside of your own families, you give and give and give and do things. And so I applaud each and every one of you ladies for that. Verse 16. She has a plan. She considers some land and buys it. Then with her earnings, she plants a vineyard. This is a woman doing trade, which wasn't necessarily the normal thing for a lady of that day. But this is an ideal woman. It's somebody, she plans for the future needs of others. And she's very good with money. Very good with money. Verse 17. Now, if you have a weakness in some of this, don't beat yourself up. Just try to get better. That's all we're saying. This is a high bar. All these things. She wraps herself in strength. Just wraps herself in strength. She carries herself with confidence, and works hard, strengthening her arms for the task at hand. See, this woman embodies strength. She takes care of herself. She carries herself well. She's a hard worker as well as being a smart worker. Everybody works, or should. Do something. That's what this is saying. You can't just sit at home and do nothing and be a virtuous woman or be an excellent woman according to the Bible. You got to put your hands to the task, so to speak. And so here we go, verse 18. She tastes success and knows it is good. She tastes success and knows it's good. She knows what she's doing, and she knows why she's doing it. And under lamplight, she works deep into the night. Her hands skillfully place the unspun flax and wool on the distaff, and her fingers twist the spindle until thread forms. You're not making clothes, but you do a lot of stuff. You work hard. You work very hard. You get up early. You look good. You go to work. You work all day. You travel sometimes for your jobs. You're gone from your family. You have to work harder before you go, don't you? Before you travel. And then what happens when you come back? You got the whole mess to clean up that those boys didn't quite take care of. I guess it's not funny to you. And see, she no lazy. She no lazy. She's well acquainted with the smell of success. My woman's a winner. She's a winner. You are a winner. She gets up early, and also burns a midnight oil at times, especially if she has unfinished business. And we men know that work is usually us. That unfinished business. She reaches out to the poor and extends mercy to those in need. Now, is that easy to do? To go beyond your family? It's hard. It was hard in those days. It's hard now. Because, you get tired. You're done. You get off of work and you want to go home. And veg out. But to go one more step. And didn't this what Jesus taught the whole time? Over and over. It's live beyond you. Serve a little more. Serve a step more outside your comfort zone. Do a little bit more than you think you can. And that's where all growth is anyway. In weightlifting, wouldn't it be lifting a little bit more weight all the time? Yeah. Run a little faster, a little further. That's the only way you get better. Learn a little bit more at your job if you want to advance, right? Get another degree, get another certification, do something more. That's what this is talking about. But again, we're talking about the poor and extends mercy. She thinks beyond her family. She gives way beyond her family and herself, this woman. Verse 21, she's not worried about the cold or snow for her family, for she has clothed them all in warm crimson coats. She makes her own bed linens and clothes herself in purple and fine cloth. See, she makes sure her family is warm and cozy, not to mention they dress well. Also, she keeps herself looking good at every stage of life. And I see you ladies, you're beautiful. She knows that she's somebody's queen. And she expects to be treated that way. But but as you can tell, it's not all about her either, right? She lives way beyond herself. Sort of like that old song, she's got what it takes and she knows how to use it. So verse 23, everyone recognizes her husband in the public square. And no one fails to respect him as he takes his place of leadership in the community. See, her husband is well known because she is so amazing in the community. That seems opposite, but I see it all the time. I went into the bank the other day and this beautiful young banker walked up to me, long blonde hair, beautiful makeup on and all this, and then she walks up and gives me a hug. It's like, she goes, "You're Josephine's husband." I'm not Mark. I'm Josephine's husband at the bank. If I go to King Soopers, I'm Josephine's husband. I went in to buy her a present yesterday at the place. Oh, aren't you Josephine's husband? So, they like me because I'm attached to her. I like it. So her husband's well known because she is amazing in the community. So verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them in the market, and she supplies belts for tradesmen to carry across the sea. Clothed in strength and dignity, with nothing to fear, she smiles when she thinks about the future. I'm going to get you. She carries herself with strength and dignity. She's unafraid. She's not afraid of the future. Now, a lot of us might have things that concern us about the future. But she's not afraid because she, one, knows God's going to take care of her, and two, knows she's done everything she can to prepare herself and her family for the future. She also knows that she's going to take a hit every now and again. We all do. But then the next thought is that wry smile. I'm going to get right back on top. And I'm going to be further. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be smarter this time. That's what it's talking about. Just keep learning, keep growing, keep learning, keep growing. Verse 26, she conducts her conversations with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is ever her concern. This is a well-accomplished lady, but again, she conducts her conversations with wisdom. She doesn't say what she shouldn't say. She says exactly what she should say. Think how words have helped you through your life. Sometimes this is one comment what you heard when you were young, it's driven you and helped you do things, right? Sure. From somebody. I like that. And the teaching of kindness is ever her concern. She speaks truth. She speaks love. She speaks light. And she's an example and a teacher of kindness. Isn't that one of the fruit of the Spirit? It's a big deal. Teaches kindness, doesn't just show it. She teaches others to do that as well. Verse 27, she directs the activities of her household, and never does she indulge in laziness. I think that's the second time we saw that word. Never does she divulge in laziness. She keeps things going at home. She keeps those plates spinning on those sticks, like most moms do. She's never lazy. And I know you ladies, you're so good at this. You're so good at this. We had a neighbor once that was so big, this man. He was like 350 pounds. And that was back before remotes on the TV. So when he'd be upstairs watching TV and he'd scream down for his wife to come up and change the channel for him. With this guy actually, I believe she grew tired of this scenario and mentioned that he should lose weight. And in 1 year, he lost half his body weight. He just cut out carbs, cut out sugar, and then he walked 5 miles every day to this one store until he could run. And then he would run that every single day. And he did this, and in less than a year, he dropped 175 pounds. It's amazing. Then got a TV with a remote. No. Now, isn't this what all you mothers would want? Her children rise up and bless her. They stand up. I got the greatest mom in the world. And probably some of you moms got Mother's Day cards, and today happens to be Mother's Day. They probably wrote nice things in there. See, or at some point you did. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband, too, joins in the praise, saying, here's what he says, there are some, indeed many women who do well in every way, but of all of them, only you are truly excellent. Isn't that how a man should think of his wife? There's a lot of great women out there, but you, for me, you are perfect. You're the perfect person for me. And women need that. They want that. And they deserve it. They deserve it. See, her children put in the time and work to bless her. Her husband thinks she hung the moon, and he goes around and tells others that she's one of a kind, that she is truly excellent, that she is virtuous, that she is the perfect one for me. It was funny. I was at a client's house, and this person, I told him in a 30-year span, my wife and I had moved 27 times. And she said, I would have put a bullet in your head. I'm glad she wasn't my wife. I don't want a bullet in my head. But Josephine said she needed a guy like me because she was so bored with her life. And so that helped her because she liked the activity and the movement of that. Every woman's different. Every guy's different. She's perfect for me. Verse 30, charm can be deceptive, and physical beauty will not last. But a woman who reveres the eternal, should be praised above all others. And all you ladies do. You revere the eternal one. Words that are eternal. It's huge. You know, she teaches her son that even as his woman ages, if she remembers the eternal one and keeps the words that last eternally close to her heart, she will be spoken of highly forever. You will be praised forever, ladies and guys, as we do that. Verse 31, celebrate all she has achieved. Let all her accomplishments publicly praise her. See, finally, Solomon is told that the actions of that type of woman are going to speak louder than words. That her actions go before, they speak louder than anything she could say. You know, laud your woman to the sky. In fact, all you women, I laud to the sky. You're amazing people. You know, what girl doesn't want to be loved like that? If you're not married, then there's other people who love you and think highly of you. It's a crazy culture we live in today. You know, and things happen. But you can live up to so much of this, whether you have a husband or not. You know, many of you have many of those qualities, but all of us have benefited from your talents, from your gifts, you know, and from your beautiful hearts especially. Quote, the sweetest of all sounds is that of the voice of the woman we love. That's Jean de la Brua. Here's another one. The beauty of a woman is not in a facial model or facial mode, but the true beauty in a woman is reflected in her soul. It is the caring that she lovingly gives, the passion that she shows. The beauty of a woman grows with the passing years. Audrey Hepburn. And last quote, behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. Jim Carrey. You know? So, sure, it's hard to live up to Proverbs 31. It's supposed to be. You know, in one way, Proverbs begins with what it takes to achieve personal perfection and ends with what it takes to find or become a perfect woman. Actually, the deeper message of Proverbs is to find our individual purpose on earth and to find the treasures that God has hid specifically for us. And that'll come by revelation. That'll come by learning to walk by the Spirit. That'll come by keeping our moral compass and not getting distracted by women and booze, no. And a few other things there. These are the words that were spoken so often to a child that they're etched into his or her heart. You just keep drilling it in, drill it in. You keep praising. You see, they're like the mother's voice in your head that continues to guide you at times in your life, or that woman who had a great impact on you at some point, mother or not. Solomon's mom was trying to instruct her incredibly bright son that his choice in mates was critical if he was going to be wise, just, equitable, and giving, like in the first few verses of chapter 1. See, when Solomon followed spiritual wisdom, when he listened to his mother and his dad, you see, Israel prospered. But when he followed his worldly lust, they all failed. Everyone suffered. When we fail, we hurt a lot of people. This is telling us how to stay on top so that we don't. You know, we may never find that perfect and powerful and virtuous woman of Proverbs 31, but we found you. We found you. You were exactly what we need. You're exactly what we need. And each of us has had many amazing ladies who've touched our lives and helped steer us in the right direction. You are the perfect one for us. You, ladies, have each helped make us exactly who we are. You've brought out the very best in us. You, each and all, are amazing ladies. God bless.